Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to a very multi-purpose video. A look ahead to the month of April, a look back on the month of March, and just a check-in. A little bit of a check-in. I missed you guys. It's been a minute, almost 2 weeks without a video, maybe perhaps exactly 2 weeks since my last video, which is a long time to go without posting. I've pretty consistently for the past 2 years, I've been posting at least one video a week, but you know what? Consider March a tactical reset for me, right? I had other stuff going on. More importantly, I directed a musical. I know, I'm impressive, right? I got that director look, don't I? But it's a lot of work. I was very busy. Didn't get to much reading. So March as a whole, statistics-wise, could have been a lot better. Let's just run through those real quick, just to keep you updated. Usually it's its own separate video, but it was such a dud month reading-wise that let me just give it to you straight. We'll do it at the beginning of this video, then we'll look ahead to a more exciting, more engaging month. It was a tactical reset month. Remember that when you look at these numbers. So I technically finished 3 books. However, the first book that I finished, House of Chains, I finished it like day 2 of March. So even though it's in the stats, it's not really finished that month. Really, I read 2 books this month. So finished 3 books this month for a total of 1,295 pages. In the thousands, sounds like kind of impressive number, but considering the last 2 months, we were over 2,100, almost 1,000 pages less this month. We really didn't get that much done, to be honest. The 2 books we did finish were obviously our book of the month, Dune, House of Chains, like I said, that's book 4 in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. And then I also did finish Daphne du Maurier's House on the Strand. I expect that review coming in the next few days. Never got to Mercury. I've been putting it off for 3 months now. Haven't got to it. And you know what? It's one of those books where, you know, it just gets pushed further and further back. It's just not a high priority for me. So I didn't get to it for the 2nd month in a row when I said that I would. So, you know what, this month we're not even going to say I'm going to read it because, you know what, we're not going to lie again. I'd like to read it. I'd like it to not just gather dust on my shelf. But you know what? You don't always get what you want. Okay? Sometimes you get what you need. Am I right? But looking ahead to the month of April, we are going to come back with a vengeance, with a fury, with a passion. Right? I plan on hitting my reading so hard because you know what? I've missed it. I've been busy with other things, other artistic pursuits, but I'm ready to dive back into reading, and we have a great lineup for the month of April. Priority for the month of April is our book of the month. I made a community post a couple days ago. It is The Grace of Kings, not Grace of Kings, The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. I truly, honestly, know absolutely nothing about this book, other than the fact that it was recommended to me. And that's exciting. I know it's a well-liked fantasy book. I don't know if it's a duology, if it's a series, if it's a trilogy. I have no idea. I know nothing about the plot. I read only the first couple sentences of the synopsis when I was adding it to my Libby. I truly know nothing about it. But it's around 700-ish pages. We plan on knocking that out. I already started reading the first I think I'm like 10 pages in now. Getting used to a new fantasy world is always a bit of an adjustment period, but I'm very excited for the story to unfold. That is our priority for this month, The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. Moving on from there, the next books I want to read come with a book haul. Because you know what? One thing in general, right? As this pile in the back grows, my anxiety increases. And I'm going to need to tackle this TBR. I can't be that guy who just continually buys books without reading them. And we're nearing the point of double digits, with books on my shelf that I haven't read. And it's kind of stressing me out. That being said, yesterday I did buy 3 more books. And you know what? I want to read them very soon. That being said, I think we can do it. Like I said, April, we're hitting it with a vengeance. I think we could do it. I think we could be ambitious. I think we could beat our record of just 4 books a month. I think we could hit 5 books in a month. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, like it's never been done before. The first book that we're unhauling / promising for the month of April, we're jumping off the point from March, right? Dune Messiah. Dune Messiah. I love Dune. I loved it the second time. That was the second time I read it last month, but it was more deeper appreciation for the book this time, I'd say. And I'm finally reading Dune Messiah for the first time. I have no idea what happens in this book. and the movie's not going to come out for another 5 years, if it ever comes out at all. So this is really the forefront of this series, and I'm very excited. I was quite honestly flabbergasted, if I could use that word, if you would allow me to use that word, flabbergasted, how short Dune Messiah is. It's under 300 pages long. From what I understand, it's the wrap-up of Paul's story. I know the Atreides family kind of continues in the later books, but listen, maybe my socks will be blown off into the wind like a kite with Dune Messiah, but I really cannot stress this enough, how little interest I have in reading every single book in the Dune series. I know there's like one more or maybe two more after Messiah that people say, well, you got to read those ones, but like the extended, like Brian Herbert, like I really, like I just feel it in my bones that I don't care, even though I really, really like Dune. I really loved the movies, to be honest, and I expect Messiah to be a great wrap-up, and I'm very, very excited to read it. Don't expect him to become a Dune head, guys, a Duner, as they say. I just don't feel it in my bones it's going to happen. However, I do want to read this one, and maybe I can be convinced to read the next one or the next two, whatever ones they recommend, like the Frank Herbert ones. But the extended ones, as Sun wrote, I would wipe my hands of it. But Dune Messiah, it's on the list for April. We plan on wrapping up the Paul Atreides storyline, and it's a quick read, which I do greatly appreciate it. I'm very excited to see how things wrap up. From what I've heard, it's not very much action at all. Very like philosophical discussion kind of book, which quite frankly I love. Some of my favorite parts of Dune were that like discussions, the philosophies, just like the study of like what kind of like this Messiah figure can do to a society and to a universe, to a galaxy, or whatever this scope of this universe is. But I'm very excited to see how the story wraps up. So it's priority number 2 on the list. We are going to finish this book, easy peasy, for the month of April. The other books that I unhauled, I don't think we'll get to both of these because they are tied together, literally bound together. I did finally buy the Six of Crows duology. I watched like the first season of the Netflix show, which to my understanding, it's Bardugo, right? Leah Bardugo. She wrote the Shadow and Bone series first, and then she did Six of Crows later. The show kind of combined the two storylines, but I was told that Six of Crows is better, and in the show, those characters were by far the more entertaining plot line. So I was recommended this duology many, many times, so I plan on reading Six of Crows. God, do you remember at the beginning of the year when I sat in this chair and I proclaimed to the world, we're going to take a step back from fantasy this year. We're probably only going to reread Malazan. Everything else is going to be non-fantasy. Clearly, I've lost my mind. And clearly, I have no respect for myself, especially myself 3 months later, right? It's always like, as I progress through my like personal growth, I could kill me from a month ago and not even bat an eye. That's how little respect I have for my past self. I only care about me now. And now I want to read as much fantasy as possible, quite frankly. Not even to think like, when am I going to get back to Robin Hobb? Because that's not on the list for this month, sorry. When am I going to get back to even Malazan? I'm not going to read Midnight Tides this month either. Sorry, guys, if you were waiting for that one. These are the whole things we got to get back to. But you know what? Six of Crows has taken the preeminent spot in my head after Grace of Kings, of course. And who knows, I might get sucked into that series, and hopefully that's not too many books, because if it's really good, I just got to finish them all. That's just the way things work. So those three are like the main priorities. I would say that the second book, Crooked Kingdom, is not the fourth priority of this month. I don't plan on diving straight into the second book unless, again, I get blown away. What would be the fourth book in this month would probably be one of two things. Either Mercury, which I've showed, it's literally just been collecting dust in the corner of my desk because I've had it out as I'm reading this soon for the last 2 months, this Amy Jo Burns book. Book of the month, Barnes & Noble for January. By this point, they burned all the copies because it probably didn't sell enough, probably didn't move their bottom line enough, so they've forgotten about it. I do plan on reading this, though, because I spent like $30 on it. So I feel obligated to read it. It's either going to be this one or I have on my Libby wait list the Barnes & Noble Book of the Year for last year, which I believe is Heaven and Earth in the Grocery Store, or some combination of those three words, or three. Grocery store is two words, Owen. Damn it. It's either Heaven in the Grocery Store, or Heaven and Earth in the Grocery Store, or Earth and Heaven in the Grocery Store and Heaven and Earth. It's that combination of words. I've had that on my Libby wait list for a while, and I've actually pushed back my borrow date a couple times. Right now it's scheduled for like the middle of April, I believe. And I do want to see what the hype about that book is, see if it's worth Book of the Year status. I am interested in reading it. So depending on how the timing works with the rest of these books, I imagine that one will be first, just because if we're finishing our book of the month, we'll probably finish Dune Messiah and then start thinking about like how close we're to the middle of the month, and doing a little check-in there. I wouldn't be surprised if we started reading that book and Six of Crows concurrently, just because I usually, even though also remember at the beginning of the year I said I want to read one book at a time, for the most part I have been doing that, but for the most part I'm also a liar. So sometimes I don't do that. And usually when I don't do that, it's because I got one digital and I got one physical book at the same time. I usually take one to work, I usually read one at night. It's a balancing act. You know what I mean? And like I said, April is the month where I unleash my true power. And all the little booktubers who read hundreds of books a month, they're like, oh, I'm a really fast reader. I actually read a lot of books. That's because you haven't seen me unleash my full power yet. Okay? And you think like, oh, Owen's being dramatic. He's probably going to read like 3 books this month. And at the next book, you can be like, oh, remember me in April? I was making all these big claims. I'm unleashing my full power. Not an April Fool's joke, guys. I am unleashing the strength of the gods this month. Because I've decided, I've willed it to be so. And if we hit that 5 number, ooh, I know what you're saying. Some people read more than 5 books a month. But you know what? It's not as impressive as when I do it, because I'm me and you're simply you, and I will always be better. And that's the kind of attitude we're going into April. Overall, a very exciting month. Hopefully, I can do what I say. I got big talk. Don't always follow through, but the list of books on my shelf, like I said, it is giving me a growing sense of anxiety. I cannot buy another book until I read at least 6 books on the shelf, not including the ones that I bought the other day. So Mercury would count in this list, but there's at least 6 or 7 books on the shelf that I haven't read yet that I have to get to. I simply have to. So expect that for the month of the one after April. That would be May, in case you were wondering. And at that point, we're probably looking at more Malazan, probably getting the itch for some Robin Hobb at that point. And then the year is starting to shape up nicely, because then we'd be approaching the month before the halfway point. And then at the halfway point, we're starting to think about how we're going to close the year out, and then I'll be dead in subsequent years after. I'm not saying at the end of this year. I'm just saying time moves at a speed at which we can't always control. Just something to think about, right? The more years you live, the shorter the years feel in comparison. That's just how percentages of your life work, just how your brain comprehends information. And you know what? That's why this month I'm unleashing my true power, slowing down time, speeding up your time. I want your month to go as fast as possible. So you wake up one morning, you're like, I've wasted my life away. Why would I say that to you? That's such a cruel thing to say. But you know what? Sometimes sacrifices have to be made, and me reading an absurd amount of books in the month of April is simply more important than anything else you have going on in your life. I wish you the best, but that being said, I'm going to have to read a lot of books. So whatever I have to do, whatever I have to manipulate in the universe to make that come true, simply needs to be done. And quite frankly, that's all I have to say to you specifically. The rest of you, you're doing a great job. I love you dearly, wish you the best, but you specifically, sorry, sacrifices have to be made for the greater good. That being said, all jokes aside, I am excited to be back. I'm excited to be reading with a vengeance. It's going to be a great month. Let me know what you're reading. I feel like I haven't talked to you guys in a while. Not that I ever really talk to you. Even when you talk to me, am I really listening? That's a character flaw for another day, and I have spoken far too long. We're so back. We're so back. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video and you want to see more like it in the future. Thanks for sticking around.